Now, a couple of months ago, I visited Taipei. Asus invited me to check out their lineup over at Computex, and the ProArt series was one lineup that I was really curious about, especially for things like content creation. Now, I recently reviewed the Asus ProArt PX13, a 2-in-1 convertible with a 13-inch OLED display, but also an RTX 4050 discrete GPU. So if you want to get content creation done on the road, that is one you might want to check out. I'll leave a link to my review on that one in the description below. It's pretty good. And as far as what a 16-inch offering that they might have, this is the one that I think really takes the cake. It's the Asus ProArt P16. It's got the AMD Ryzen AI 9HX370. Ooh, that is a mouthful. That is the brand new Zen 5 based architecture from AMD, and of course we're seeing really good results out of it. It's got integrated graphics, the Radeon 890M, but it also has a discrete GPU, the NVIDIA RTX 4070 with 105 watts of power. So this thing is not playing around. It's got a sleek black look. They're calling it the Nano Black. It's pretty good as far as fingerprints, and it has some really good performance, especially if you want to get creative work done. Now, we're going to get into why I think this is one of the best 16-inch laptops geared towards content creators out here in 2024. They get a lot of it right. It's not perfect. There's one particular thing I'm not crazy about. We're going to get into it and more in this review. Hey everybody, it's Andrew, and this is my review of the Asus ProArt P16, all new for 2024. Coming up. Now, before we get to the unit itself, I just want to let everyone know, in the interest of transparency and full disclosure, I'm not being paid by Asus, I'm not being sponsored by Asus. All the opinions you're about to hear are my own. Asus is not getting copy approval. That means they're seeing this video for the first time, just like you. Now, this unit is on loan from Asus, and once this review is done, I'll be sending it back. Now, you could pick up the ProArt P16 over at Best Buy. There's a SKU for $1899.99. That gets you the Ryzen AI 9 HX370, 32 gigabytes of memory, 1 terabyte of storage, and the RTX 4060. And of course, it comes in this Nano Black. You could also go with the higher end model. That one's at $2,700. That gives you 64 gigabytes of memory, 4070 in terms of the GPU, and 2 terabytes of SSD storage, which is a pretty nice deal considering the MacBook Pro 16 comes in at a lot more money in a similar configuration. Now, for those interested, I'll leave a link in the description below for more information and where you can buy one. So let's get it out of the box. So let's figure this out. Let me put it down here. So there's like boxes within boxes here. ProArt right here. Let's put that right there. And then we got a backpack, it looks like right there. It's pretty nice, actually. Wow. So that is a nice little touch there. This is their creator series, right? Prosumer type creator. Very, very nice. Even ProArt on the zipper there. And I think this is a really nice touch. Looks like the power charger in here, 200 watts. So this is the same charger that we looked at on its smaller sibling, the PX13 in the ProArt series. You also get your power cord there. So this is the box itself, and let's see what we get here. So far, packaging is pretty nice. Wow, feels like a little bit of heft there. It's pretty substantial. We'll get a measurement of the weight, and I think that's it. So there's nothing else in this inner box here. Okay. And there she is, ProArt. One thing I can tell you right off the bat, these are some premium laptops. I got to tell you, the smaller one that we looked at was really nice. This one is nice as well. You can see it here. This is that Nano Black that they're calling it. And I got to say one thing. I was expecting more fingerprints on that 13-inch, which has the same coating. I didn't get quite as much fingerprints as I thought I would. Let me open this up with one finger because you know that is the useless test of the day. And of course you can do it. For those that want a numpad, you're not going to get it on here, but you do have space here for the speaker grills. I'm assuming they are speaker grills. You got a power button there. You can take a look at the layout here. You get the Copilot key. You get pretty standard keyboard, I guess. This will turn off the camera, so you get you more security and privacy. And let's put just the unit alone. You're looking at 1.847 kilograms, and that is 4 pounds, 1.2 ounces. So listen, for a 16-inch laptop, that's actually not that bad, considering what this is packing under the hood. And then put it back to kilograms here with the power cord and the power charger. You're looking at 2.412 kilograms, and that would be 5 pounds, 5.1 ounces. I got to tell you, that is not bad for a 16-inch laptop with a discrete GPU and everything that this is packing. So pretty decent overall. Okay, let's check out the port selection. On the left side is your DC-in. That's a proprietary port from Asus. You can use your 200-watt power adapter included in the box. Next to that is an HDMI 2.1. Always good to see that. A USB Type-C 4.0 port that supports 40 gigabits per second, and it worked with my Sabrent Thunderbolt SSD drive, so that means Thunderbolt support is there, which is always welcome. A USB Type-A port is welcome as well. That's a nice legacy port to have. And finally, a 3.5 millimeter microphone headphone combo jack to round out the left side. And moving over to the right side is a full-size SD card reader, which is always welcome. Now, one thing to note, the cards stick out about halfway when inserted, not flush with the unit. And then next to that is a USB Type-A port. And finally, a USB Type-C 3.2 Gen 2, a second USB-C port, of course, not 4.0 like the other side, but having two, one on each side, of course, makes it more convenient. So I like the way they split that up. I wish more brands would follow suit. And I would say all in all, a very good port selection here. And here's something pretty interesting. On the back are 3 indicator lights letting you know the device is powered on, charging, and I guess hard disk activity maybe. A very interesting spot because you're not going to actually see that unless you're looking at the back of the unit. Would have been more interesting to put it on the front of the unit. So pretty interesting placement, maybe an odd placement, but let me know what you think in the comments section below. Okay, let's check out the internals, and the first thing you'll notice right off the bat are the 3 fans for cooling. We'll get into the thermal performance later on, and you'll also notice that 90 watt-hour battery. Will get into the battery life later on as well. Now, one good news here is you do get 2 M.2 2280 SSD slots, so you have a chance to expand it out. Now, my review unit has 4 terabytes of SSD storage, and as you can see, the reads and writes, I would say, are okay. I've actually seen faster, but from what I understand, it does support a RAID 0 configuration if you want to go that route, but the one that I have here is not RAID 0, so just keep that in mind. Now, this is running with 64 gigabytes of LPDDR5X RAM, running at 7,500 mega transfers per second, and it is running in dual channel mode. I like to see this 64 gigabytes of RAM. Unfortunately, it is soldered into the motherboard. That means it's not upgradable by the user, but because it is soldered in, you are able to get those faster transfers, and that's exactly what we're seeing. Now, when it comes to wireless, you're looking at Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth 5.4. That card is slotted in, not soldered in. That means you can change it out down the road if you need to. And as far as the Wi-Fi is working great. The Bluetooth's working fine. No issues with either one. And it is running MediaTek Wi-Fi for those that are interested. So it is Wi-Fi 7, making it more future-proof, which is always good to see. Okay, let's talk about the display, and it's a really good one here, folks. It's a 4K OLED display, 3840 by 2400. It has a 16:10 aspect ratio and a 0.2 millisecond response time. It has 500 nits of peak brightness for HDR, and it is also 60 hertz, which is the one thing that I think holds it back from being an almost perfect display. I would like to see an option for higher refresh rate. That being said, the brightness here is very good. I measured 352 in terms of standard dynamic range, 500 nits of peak brightness when consuming HDR. It has excellent coverage of the color gamut. It is a color accurate display, so doing things like Lightroom, Photoshop, video editing, and DaVinci Resolve, Premiere Pro has been a great experience with this panel. Now, this is also a touchscreen display, so navigating the OS with your finger, pinch to zoom, all work very well. That's a nice convenience feature. And it also has stylus support, so if you want to sketch out some diagrams or jot down a note here and there, you do have that option. Now, the pen didn't come included with my review unit, but I had a number of pens here in the studio that were compatible with this device. Now, a couple of things to note about an OLED display. There's something called screen burn-in that might happen over time, but they do have the Asus OLED Care in the My Asus app enabled here, and I think it helps with reducing the chances of screen burn-in. I haven't experienced it at all with this unit or any of the other units I've received in the last year or so. So really good in that regard. So I wouldn't really worry about it all that much. And the other thing you need to be aware of is something called PWM, or screen flickering, that OLED technology uses, and some people are sensitive to PWM and may get some eye strain or something like that. I am not sensitive to it, but I would be remiss if I didn't point that out. And you will detect it, I would say, around 30% or less screen brightness. You might notice the PWM. But I would say my overall takeaway is this is an excellent display, especially for the content creator that needs to get work done in these creative apps like Photoshop, Lightroom, video editing, and of course, stuff like that. But for those that need a higher refresh rate, this is not the panel for you. If you want to do gaming, there are better options out there with a higher refresh rate. So this is the camera on the Asus ProArt P16 here for 2024, running the brand new Ryzen AI processor. This is a 1080p IR camera. You can log in with face recognition with Windows Hello. What do you think about the video quality? What do you think about the audio quality? Now, this, of course, being an AI PC, has an NPU, or neural processing unit, up to 50 TOPS according to AMD. So this will certainly help with the studio effects. I'm not going to get into it. We've seen it a million times. Background blur, all the auto frame, all that stuff is handled by the NPU, not needed to use the CPU. That'll be more efficient, give you a little bit better battery life perhaps. But again, I want to see more applications take advantage of the NPU. We don't see that much right now. That being said, again, what do you think about the video quality? What do you think about the audio quality? Let me know. Now, performance of this Ryzen AI 9 HX370 is quite good, especially single core, which is 115 here, which was shy of the MacBook Pro, which is pretty souped up with 142 score. 115 is actually really, really good, and a multi-core score here, 1215. Again, not quite as good as the MacBook Pro, but of course, this one is a lot less money, and you're getting some really good CPU performance here. Now, when it comes to the GPU on that Cinebench 2024, the RTX 4070 with 105 watts of power, not quite as good as the RTX 4090 on its sibling, the Asus ROG Zephyrus G16, but that's to be expected. Now, when we look head-to-head with something like the XPS 16 from Dell, as you can see, better single-core, better multi-core, better OpenCL in terms of the integrated solution, and better graphics when it comes to the RTX 4070. This is fed more power, so hence you're going to get a little bit better performance here when it comes to the graphics. And when I ran the Cinebench 2024, head-to-head between the Asus and the Dell, similar situation here, better single-core, better multi-core, and about the same GPU performance on that test. So not much of a difference running the same RTX 4070, although the RTX 4070 on the P16 is fed more wattage. And when we look at the 3D Mark Time Spy score and the Firestrike score, we're seeing a better result here with this ProArt P16 over the Dell XPS 16. And being fed more wattage to the GPU means you're going to do better when things like video editing, and the Puget Bench DaVinci Resolve, we got an overall score of 1783, which was a better result than the 1517 I got on the XPS 16. And I know a lot of you are looking at the Asus ROG Zephyrus G16 because not only is that a great gaming laptop, but it also can do things like video editing. But this one does come in a little bit more money at $3,000 right now on sale over at Best Buy. Pretty decked out. You do get the 4090 with 95 watts of power with the Intel Core Ultra 9 185H. And we're obviously seeing better single core on this Asus ProArt P16, believe it or not, and better multi-core. But where you're going to see the better graphics is going to be the RTX 4090, and I don't think that's a big surprise here. 4070 just won't have as much power, and that will result in better graphics performance on that Zephyrus G16. And we're seeing that play out pretty much the same way in the Cinebench 2024. Better single and multi-core performance on the ProArt P16, better graphics performance on the Asus ROG Zephyrus G16. And it comes as no surprise, better Time Spy Firestrike scores on the Zephyrus G16. Now, let's talk video editing here, and the overall score here, 1783 on that Puget Bench DaVinci Resolve benchmark, means 4K video editing done really well here. 4K media score very good, GPU effects score very good, and an overall fusion score very good. So the ProArt P16 will be great for those video editors with transitions, effects, and all kinds of fancy graphics. You will be able to do that. Scrubbing through the timeline was not an issue on it. Everything very smooth and fluid. Now, keep in mind, if you do go up to that ROG Zephyrus G16 with that 4090, you are spending more money, but you are getting more graphics performance. Obviously, a 4090 will have a more power than the 4070, and that's why you're seeing a better overall score when it comes to the Puget Bench DaVinci Resolve benchmark. Now, I know a lot of you are looking at the MacBook Pro and saying, well, that's the best out there with the 16 cores and the 40-core GPU, 64 gigabytes of RAM, but you're paying $5,200 in a configuration that's similar to the one with the ProArt P16. So are you really getting that much more? You know, look at that single core score, 2917 versus 3125. It's not that big of a difference. So they've closed the gap there. And multi-core, yes, you will get a better result on the MacBook Pro, but you will be paying a big amount of money more than you would on the ProArt P16. Now, OpenCL, again, video editing will be very good on the MacBook Pro, especially for things like Final Cut Pro, which is exclusive to the Apple laptop there. But I would say that this is a very good comparison here, and I think the ProArt P16 certainly holds its own. Now, when it comes to gaming, the RTX 4070 is no slouch here. You know, play with the settings, you get some very playable frame rates on some of the more popular titles, so that is very doable here. But of course, it's not a gaming laptop first and foremost, but you can game, obviously, on your downtime. Now, when I ran the TimeSpy stress test to see if this will thermal throttle under heavy load, got good news here. It got a passing score of 98.6%, detecting virtually no thermal throttling under load, and that's a good thing. And as far as the surface temperatures are concerned, when I ran it under heavy load, where you place your fingers on the keyboard stayed relatively cool, but under the display above the keyboard is where the heating vent is, and that's where it heated up to around 51, 52 degrees Celsius. So just be aware of that, but that's normal. That's where it's going to vent out of there. And on the underside, the 3 fans did a good job keeping the underside cool, never getting overly hot. So placing it on your lap was not much of an issue. But where you will notice those fans is in the fan noise under load, reaching as high as 56, 57 decibels, which is quite noticeable. But of course, that's in the performance mode. That's when you're pushing this to 100%. But if you're doing everyday tasks like Microsoft Office, email, web browsing, the fan noise was really not much of an issue. Okay, let's talk battery life. And actually, with this 90 watt-hour battery, I was expecting worse battery life. Actually, the battery life here was pretty decent. 7 hours and 37 minutes on the PC Mark 10 Modern Office test, 8 hours and 12 minutes on the Microsoft Office test, and 8 hours and 41 minutes on the video playback. So pretty decent results for a laptop packing this much power. Really not geared towards longevity, really more towards the power, but the battery life was not bad considering the high-end display you're getting here, considering what it's packing under the hood. That being said, you do better in battery life with the Yoga Pro 9i, one of its competitors, because that one did better with its mini LED display, even running at 165 hertz. And I would say my real world usage, I'm getting anywhere between 6 and 7 hours on a daily basis. But of course, it all depends on what you're doing with this laptop. So everybody's use case is a little bit different. So your mileage may vary. So please keep that in mind. Now, keep in mind, I also ran it at 60 hertz. So if I lowered that Yoga Pro 9i down to the 60 hertz, you'll get a little bit more battery life out of that. So just keep that in mind. But overall, not too bad when it comes to battery life. Okay, when it comes to the keyboard, it's actually a really good one here. I measured 1.7 millimeters of key travel, and these chiclet-style keys are very comfortable for typing out long documents, emails, and the like. It's been a really good typing experience with it. It also has a multi-stage backlight on it. That's going to allow you to get work done in a dark room or a dimly lit environment. That white LED backlight is easy to see against these black keys, so not an issue in terms of the contrast, so it's pretty good there. Now, when it comes to the touchpad, it's a really nicely sized touchpad here. It's a pretty large one and very responsive when it comes to scrolling, doing all the gestures. Everything works as you'd expect. But unfortunately, it's not a haptic touchpad, and at this very high price point, I would assume that it should have a haptic touchpad. I would expect that, like you get on, say, the Surface Laptop 7 or even some of the other laptops we looked at. Even the Dell XPS 16 has a haptic touchpad. Maybe Sensel should talk to Asus, maybe do a deal and put their haptics in the next touchpad next go-around. Now, within the touchpad, you'll notice the Asus dial pad. We saw it in the PX13 that I recently reviewed, also in that ProArt series. That worked well. Now, you can control the volume, you can control the screen brightness, you can scrub through a YouTube video, you can go to different specific applications in DaVinci Resolve, scrub through the timeline, same with the Adobe suite of apps. So things like that, this can be really convenient. And of course, to turn it on, you just swipe from the upper corner there, swipe down, and it activates it, and the same to turn it off. So if you don't want to use it, it's there. It's not going to get in the way. But if you do want to use it, and if you want to be creative with it, it's a nice convenience feature to have. Now, when it comes to the sound, you're looking at 6 speakers here. They're Harman Premium. They have really good mids, volume, bass, everything all very good. Fills up the room rather nicely. It's got Dolby Atmos to help with the spatial audio. Sound here is really excellent. Now, let's give it a listen. Okay, let's wrap it all up. The Asus ProArt P16 here for 2024 is a creator's dream in a lot of ways. It's got a premium compact aluminum design. I like its gorgeous 4K OLED display. I like the excellent speakers. Out of those 6 speakers, they're Harman tuned. I like the great selection of ports here. The 2 M.2 2280 SSD slots. How can you go wrong with that? Fast CPU, good system performance here. 64 gigabyte option in terms of the RAM. Wi-Fi 7. Stylus support for those that need it. Although not necessary, it's a nice feature to have. Overall, a really great package here. But of course, it's not perfect here. There are a few things I'd like to change. Starting with the refresh rate. Yes, you only get 60 hertz here. I'd like to see an option for 120. RAM is not upgradable, but that's pretty much par for the course here in 2024. I'd like to see a haptic touchpad. That's something you would probably get in other laptops at this price point. You don't get it here. Although the touchpad worked well, haptics would have been better. It tops out at an RTX 4070. I'd like to see an option, say, for a 4090 like you get on the Zephyrus G16. It has some fan noise under heavy load, but of course, that's really when you're pushing it, playing games, doing high-end 4K video editing. You'll notice those fans, but when you're doing everyday tasks, it was not much of an issue. And I noticed a bit of screen wobble when typing. Not a lot, but something that did catch my attention, so I wanted to point that out. But overall, the ProArt P16 is excellent, especially for those that do content creation. It's a really great prosumer type device that will get work done in DaVinci Resolve, Premiere Pro, Photoshop, Lightroom, and the like. So if you're into content creation and want something that you could take on the road that won't totally weigh you down, but packs a punch under the hood, the ProArt P16 just might be your choice here for 2024. So please hit the like button, please subscribe, please share this video. Don't forget to leave a comment in the comment section below. Let me know how I'm doing. Let me know if there's a device or something out there you think I should review. I'll do my best to try to make that happen. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and X, the platform formerly known as Twitter. And don't forget to check out my website, amdtechreviews.com. So until next time, this is Andrew, and I'll see you in the next video.